Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. Have you ever been told something was statistically impossible? That you had a 0% chance of survival? Meet Jace Harlan. One moment he was staring into a massive transport viewport, and the next he was staring down a collapsing wormhole, the aptly named Severance Gate. His mission: save a diplomatic convoy carrying the representatives of 18 different species from being atomized. His computer models screamed impossible. Every protocol said pull back. But Jace didn't fly by protocol. He flew by instinct, by a feeling in his gut that saw a rhythm in the chaos. He didn't just survive the Severance Gate, he punched a hole right through it. Now, his insane survival has landed him face to face with the apex predators of the galaxy, the feline-like Kashari, specifically the legendary Captain Zyra Vecthus. She's giving him a look that says, I either want to interrogate you or eat you. And she needs to know one thing. Was he the luckiest human in the sector, or is he hiding a dangerous capability? What happens next will throw Jace and Zyra together, revealing a deadly conspiracy that threatens to ignite an intergalactic war and redefine everything they thought they knew about instinct, precision, and what it truly means to survive. So, Jace Harlan, our rogue human pilot, only thought it, a casual, subconscious, maybe even slightly flirty thought about the Kashari captain who was moments away from debriefing him. But the moment the thought crossed his mind, the captain, Zyra Vecthus, turned toward him. Her feline face, with its pure white, almost luminous fur, leaned close and she purred, Careful, human. I hear everything you want. That wasn't the first shock Jace experienced that day. Just moments before, he was piloting his fighter through deep space when the viewport in front of him cracked. His hands reacted before his brain could register the sound, yanking the control yoke hard left. His thumbs simultaneously killed the stabilizers. His fighter screamed in protest. Hull plates rattled like loose bones in a cup. 20 meters ahead, the event horizon of the Severance Gate, that infamous wormhole, twisted and collapsed inward with the terrifying, grinding inevitability of a closing fist. Jace's comms immediately lit up. Negative, Jace. You are ordered to pull back. It was Commander Lucas Hale, his voice cutting through the rising static. Copy that, Commander, Jace replied. But instead of pulling back, he punched the throttle forward. The universe fractured. Colors that don't exist in normal space slashed across his vision. His fighter's frame groaned under forces that should have instantly atomized him. He knew why he was doing this: the diplomatic convoy. 3 massive transports carrying delegates from 18 different species were hanging frozen on his display, directly in the wormhole's destructive path. If they were caught in the collapse, the fragile interspecies alliance would shatter. His fingers danced across the console. He diverted all remaining power from his own life support straight to the forward shields. The cockpit temperature spiked immediately, and sweat rolled down his temple. He had to thread his fighter through the geometric chaos, trusting his hands more than his instruments. This was pure instinct, his body recognizing patterns his conscious mind couldn't process. He fired 3 missiles right into the collapsing infrastructure. The explosions didn't stop the collapse, but they destabilized it just enough. Jace angled his ship through the opening, feeling spacetime itself scrape against his shields, and then he burst through. The convoy filled his view. He banked hard, killing his momentum with a desperate thruster burn that nearly liquefied his organs. His vision grayed and he tasted copper, a sure sign of internal bleeding. Move, 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 he shouted into the comms. The transport ships scattered. The wormhole collapsed behind them with a blinding flash, painting his viewport white. When the light faded, the convoy was clear. His fighter, however, was tumbling through space. Systems were failing everywhere. He arrested the spin just before his dampeners gave out. His hands were shaking. Jace, report status. Commander Hale's voice came through, strained but relieved. Alive, Jace managed. Ship's critical. I need a tow. Then another voice cut through, crisp, accented, and utterly dominant. Jace, this is Kashari flagship Bloodspire Eternal. We are dispatching recovery. The debriefing room aboard the Bloodspire Eternal was built for Kashari proportions. Jace sat in a small chair that was clearly brought in just for him and looked utterly out of place. His flight suit was stained with coolant. Across from him sat 3 Kashari officers. 2 males with dark fur, and the third was the female, Captain Zyra Vecthus. She studied him with the intense, focused way a scientist examines a specimen. Her fur was pure white, almost luminescent. Her pointed ears tracked every slight movement he made. Her eyes were amber, with vertical pupils that contracted as she assessed him. She wore a tactical uniform that emphasized her athletic frame, Humanoid, yes, but with the coiled readiness of a natural predator. Lieutenant Harlan, one of the dark-furred males began, what you did was statistically impossible. Jace shrugged slightly. I'm sitting here so the statistics were wrong, he replied. Zyra's ear twitched. It was the only sign of irritation. You had 0.7 seconds to decide, the other male continued. Our computers calculated a 0% survival probability. Explain your methodology. I saw an opening and took it, Jace said simply. That is not an explanation, Zyra spoke. Her voice was lower than expected, with a distinct, unsettling purring quality. That is luck. Call it whatever makes you comfortable, Captain, Jace retorted, meeting her amber eyes. Her pupils contracted to sharp slits. That is Captain Zyra Vectis, the first male stated stiffly, First Squadron Commander. Third highest combat honors in the Kashari fleet. I'm alive, Jace stated, holding her gaze. The convoy is alive. If the captain has a better explanation for how, I'm listening. Zyra leaned forward. Her claws extended slightly, just enough to dig into the table's surface. You are either the luckiest human in this sector, or you are lying about your capabilities, she hissed. I intend to determine which. Good luck with that, Jace replied, utterly unfazed. The left officer continued, ignoring the tension. Admiral Corvin has authorized an unconventional solution. You are offered placement in the First Squadron, under Captain Vectis's command. An elite Kashari squadron. Jace saw the trap. And if I refuse? He asked. Then you return to your fleet with our gratitude, Zyra cut in. Her tone suggested exactly how worthless that gratitude would be. But you will never know if you were truly skilled or simply fortunate. There it was. The hook. The challenge Jace couldn't resist. I accept. Zyra's expression didn't change, but her white tail twitched once. Training begins at 0600 shipboard time, she said. Dismissed. The males left. Zyra remained seated. Something else, Captain? Jace asked. I've reviewed your service record, she said. 14 confirmed kills, 8 commendations, 3 disciplinary actions for insubordination. You ignore orders when you think you know better. Only when I'm right. That attitude will not serve you in my squadron, she said, standing smoothly. We operate with precision. Individual heroics are a liability. And yet you're stuck training the individual hero, Jace countered. Her ears flattened against her skull. 0600 hours, Lieutenant. Don't be late. She walked past him. Jace caught her scent, cinnamon and static electricity. She paused at the door, glancing back. In my squadron, luck runs out quickly. I suggest you have more than luck to offer. Jace found his quarters and cleaned up. He should have slept, but restlessness drove him into the ship's corridors. He wandered into a section marked with Kashari glyphs he couldn't read. The lighting here was dimmer, a deeper amber. He should have turned back. Voices ahead. He slowed. His translator caught the conversation being spoken in the Kashari language. Timeline has been moved up, someone said. The Admiral wants the next phase operational within 2 cycles. And the target's finalized, another voice, low and gravelly, replied. High value, maximum political impact. The humans will have no choice but to withdraw from the alliance. Jace pressed himself against the wall, edging forward. 3 Kashari officers stood in a side corridor, a tactical specialist, an engineer, and 1 figure obscured by shadow. What about the incident today? The tactical specialist asked. Unfortunate, the shadowed figure said, but irrelevant. 1 human pilot changes nothing. The figure stepped into the light. It was an older Kashari male with dark fur streaked with gray. Scars crossed his muzzle. Necessary casualties are acceptable if they serve the ultimate goal, the scarred male stated. Jace's breath caught. He backed away quickly. His boots scraped metal. Who's there? The scarred male barked. Jace ran. The Kashari gave chase. Their footfalls were lighter but faster. Jace took a corner too hard, slammed into the wall and ricocheted forward. The corridor branched. He chose left. Dead end. The 3 Kashari appeared. The scarred male, Commander Karath Gulvar, stood in front, his claws extended. You're in a restricted area, human. Got lost, Jace managed between breaths. New to the ship. Lost? Karath repeated, his lip curled back from his sharp teeth. Convenient. He advanced. Stand down, all of you. A new voice, sharp and authoritative, cut through the tension. Captain Zyra Vectis emerged from a side passage. Her weapon was drawn. Captain, Karatha's tone shifted immediately. This human was found in a restricted section. Lieutenant Harlan is my responsibility, Zyra said. I'll handle this. The Admiral will want a report. Then I'll provide one, Zyra replied, her tail lashing once. Dismissed. The three Kashari retreated. Karath held Zyra's gaze for a long moment before disappearing. Zyra holstered her weapon and turned to Jace. She grabbed his collar and yanked him close. What were you doing here? They were talking about an attack, Jace whispered quickly. The next phase, necessary casualties. They said today's incident was unfortunate but irrelevant. Zyra's grip tightened, then released. She stepped back. You're certain? Yes. She studied him for several seconds, her tail moving in fast, agitated patterns. Come with me, she finally ordered. And don't speak to anyone. Jace didn't waste a second arguing. When Captain Zyra Vectis ordered him to follow, he did exactly that. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the adrenaline from his narrow escape was still pumping. He knew he'd stumbled into something massive, and the fact that Zyra, an elite officer on the hostile flagship, had just risked her career to cover for him meant she knew it too. She led him through a labyrinth of service tunnels, not the main corridors. Her movements were silent, economical, pure Kashari efficiency. Jace, despite his exhaustion, kept pace, relying on the instinct that had saved him at the Severance Gate. Speak quietly, Zyra instructed, her voice a low purr that barely carried in the confined space. Every high-ranking officer on the Bloodspire Eternal is connected to the command network. Even casual comm chatter can be monitored. She stopped at an unmarked access panel, keyed in a complex sequence with blinding speed, and the panel slid open, revealing a dusty, disused maintenance bay. The air was stale, but the metal walls provided a degree of acoustic isolation. Start from the beginning, Zyra commanded, turning to face him. Her amber eyes were wide, and the vertical pupils were fully dilated, indicating extreme focus. Everything you heard. Word for word, if possible. Jace recounted the conversation he overheard from Commander Karath Gulvar and the other officers. They said the timeline has been moved up, and they need the next phase operational within 2 cycles. And the targets need to be high value, maximum political impact, to force the humans to withdraw from the Alliance. Zyra's tail lashed once, sharply, against the metal floor. 2 cycles. 48 hours. That aligns with my current fears. Fears of what, Captain? Jace pressed. She looked at him, and for the first time, Jace saw a flicker of genuine concern beneath the cold precision. The Kashari are masters of strategic planning, Lieutenant. We do not act with haste unless the opportunity is fleeting, or the consequences of waiting are too great. The faction led by Karath believes the human-alien alliance is making us soft. They want to reignite the conflict, and they need a catastrophic, undeniable act of aggression to do it. And the target? The highest value strategic asset currently under joint command, she whispered. The human trade hub. Crucible Station. Jace felt a chill that had nothing to do with the stale air. Crucible Station was the linchpin, the beating heart of trade and diplomacy for dozens of species. If it fell, the Alliance would collapse. War was guaranteed. We have to warn Commander Hale, Jace said immediately. Our secure comms are useless, Zyra stated, moving to a small hidden wall panel. They are monitored. Our network is designed for perfect, frictionless information flow. That means it's also designed for perfect surveillance. She pulled out a small, antiquated device. It looked like something a human antique dealer might call charming junk. This, however, is not connected to any modern network. It uses a signal protocol that hasn't been active in 1,000 years. It's too slow, too inefficient for the new guard. But it is untraceable. Jace watched, fascinated, as the hyper-advanced Kashari captain was forced to use ancient technology. You said, I hear everything you want earlier, Jace said, his voice dropping. When I was thinking about you. Zyra paused, her fingers hovering over the ancient comm unit. Her eyes narrowed. I can't believe you're bringing this up now, but yes. It is not something we advertise. The Bloodspire Eternal's command bridge is equipped with an archaic psychic interface. A residual capability from our species' early, darker history. It amplifies latent telepathic ability, allowing the commander to gauge the morale and intentions of their subordinates. It is usually filtered. But with a chaotic, unorganized mind like yours, it can break through the filter. She looked at him sharply. It's an unpredictable technology. It's a risk. And it's one more reason I cannot trust you, Harlan. Your thoughts are loud. Jace grinned faintly. Good to know I make an impression, Captain. She sighed, a sound of pure exasperation. Focus, Lieutenant. I can transmit a burst signal, but it will only carry a short, encoded message. I need your knowledge of human alliance protocols to ensure it reaches the right ears, specifically Agent Mason Voss in Intelligence and Commander Hale. They huddled over the device, Zyra inputting the destination codes, Jace formulating the message. They distilled the impending destruction of Crucible Station into a short, terrifying string of code words. The Kashari code for immediate danger, apex breach, followed by the designation for Crucible Station and the time parameter, 2 cycles, Zyra muttered as she typed. It's all we can transmit. It will be dismissed as a glitch or noise by the regular monitoring systems, but Voss and Hale should recognize the emergency protocol. The device whirred, glowing with a soft, unstable blue light. Zyra stabilized it with the precision of a surgeon. Hold, she instructed. The channel is open. Transmitting, now. The signal indicator flashed rapidly. Jace held his breath, watching the progress bar crawl across the tiny screen. Every second felt like an hour. 70% transmitted. 80% transmitted. Just as the bar hit 90%, a klaxon blared through the ship's vents. Not the general alarm but a high-priority security alert, specifically for this sector. They found us. Zyra snapped, already shutting down the device and sweeping the components back into the hidden compartment. The hatch to the maintenance bay exploded inward. Standing in the entrance, silhouetted against the corridor lights, was Commander Karath Gulvar. Behind him were 4 heavily armed Kashari security officers. Karatha's scarred face was twisted in a sneer. Well. It seems the human pilot was even more than merely lost, Captain Vectis. Espionage and sabotage. A clear violation of the human Kashari treaty. Zyra stepped in front of Jace, her posture defensive, ready to spring. Stand down, Karath. I was conducting a security test on outdated protocols, using the human as a decoy. Do not insult my intelligence, Zyra, Karath hissed, moving closer. I've suspected your loyalty for months. You were too keen on the alliance, too trusting of the human chaos. The security logs show your access to the outdated comms panel. The timing of the security alert is impeccable. I intercepted the burst signal. Apex breach. Crucible Station? That is not a security test. That is treason. He gestured to the 4 officers. Apprehend them. The human will be interrogated for unauthorized access and espionage. Captain Vectis will be confined to quarters pending a tribunal. A brief, violent skirmish erupted. Zyra, despite being outnumbered, fought with shocking grace and speed. She disabled 2 of the security officers with precise, paralyzing strikes. Jace, driven by instinct, tackled the 3rd, using his chaotic, unpredictable human movement to gain an advantage. He wasn't a hand-to-hand specialist, but he was fast. Karath didn't fight. He simply raised his rifle, aiming not at Jace or Zyra, but at the remaining security officer who was wrestling with Jace. Stop this foolishness, Zyra, Karath barked. If you resist, I will execute the human and frame you for murder. If you yield now, the tribunal will only see 2 officers struggling over an out-of-line human. Your reputation and your life might still be salvageable. Zyra hesitated. She looked at Jace, who was pinned beneath the officer, struggling for air. She looked at Karath, knowing he would not hesitate. Her precision dictated a surrender. A tactical retreat to ensure survival. With a growl of pure frustration, Zyra dropped her stance. I yield. But I demand a fair, immediate tribunal under Admiral Corvin. You will have your hearing, Karath said, the sneer deepening. But first, we must prevent any further security tests. Jace and Zyra were quickly subdued, cuffed with energy restraints that hummed with a disabling frequency. They were hauled out of the maintenance bay and marched toward the brig. As they walked down the main corridor, Jace caught Zyra's eye. The contact was brief, but in that moment she communicated the core Kashari understanding. This is not over. Jace was thrown into a small, sterile confinement cell. The door hissed shut, sealing him into a tiny metallic box. After the chaos of the last few hours, the wormhole, the confrontation with Karath, the silence was deafening. He slumped against the wall, trying to control his shaking hands. He looked around the cell. It was bare. He knew they were expecting him to panic, to give them information. But Jace knew how to wait. He knew how to trust his instincts. He thought of Zyra. Her strength, her rigid adherence to a code, and the clear conflict in her eyes when she had to choose between fighting Karath and protecting Jace. She chose the long-term goal. The choice of a warrior. He remembered her words again, "I hear everything you want." What had he been thinking earlier, before the alarm, before Karath? He was thinking about how impossible it was, a human pilot and a Kashari captain working together, trusting each other, against their own people to save a civilization. He was thinking that beneath the cold, sharp exterior of Captain Zyra Vectis, there was a fierce, passionate warrior who valued life and loyalty above political gain. He was thinking, he wanted to know more about that passion. Was she listening now? Jace Harlan had never been afraid of being loud. Meanwhile, in her more comfortable yet equally secure quarters, Zyra sat alone. The room was designed to look like a dignified confinement, but the security was absolute. She reviewed the incident in her mind, running the data points. Her actions were measured, surrendering to protect the information flow. Karath had the Apex breach message, but he didn't have the context and he didn't have a witness. She took comfort in one thing: the transmission had hit 90%. She had sent the signal. Now, it was up to the Human Alliance, to Commander Lucas Hale and Agent Mason Voss, to connect the dots. She had thrown a single, chaotic variable, Jace Harlan, into Karatha's precise, logical conspiracy. She just had to wait for the ripples to turn into a wave. She closed her eyes, trying to clear her mind, but she could still hear it, the faint residual echo of Jace Harlan's thoughts. His chaotic human mind, loud and unrestrained, not focused on fear or escape, but on Crucible Station and her. She shuddered, a foreign sensation. His chaos was a liability, but it was also a strength. It was the only thing that had broken through the Bloodspire Eternal's rigid, controlled environment. Suddenly her internal comm beeped. It was Karath. "Captain Vectis." His voice was smug. "The tribunal has been postponed. An emergency directive just arrived." Zyra's heart sank. "What directive?" "The Human Alliance is holding an emergency summit at Crucible Station starting immediately," Karath said, his voice dripping with victory. "A surprise meeting. It seems the human intelligence somehow got wind of something being off. They've rushed all 18 species representatives to the station." Zyra's mind raced. Jace's warning. It had worked. "But this is a complication for you, Karath," Zyra countered, trying to sound calm. "Targeting an empty station is one thing. Targeting a full, high-profile diplomatic summit will cause a galactic outcry, even from your allies." She was confined. Jace was confined. Crucible Station was about to be obliterated, taking the entire human-alien alliance with it. They were too late. No, not too late. Just out of options. She needed chaos. She needed instinct. She needed Jace. She stood and looked at the single ventilation grate high on the wall of her quarters. It was small. Too small for a Kashari. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was big enough for a human to manipulate, if he could hear her thoughts. She closed her eyes and focused, pushing all her precision, all her ordered will into a single chaotic thought. Jace Harlan. Find the vent. No. She was confined. Jace was confined. Crucible Station was about to be obliterated, taking the entire human-alien alliance with it. They were too late. No. Not too late. Just out of options. She needed chaos. She needed instinct. She needed Jace. She stood and looked at the single ventilation grate high on the wall of her quarters. It was small. Too small for a Kashari. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was big enough for a human to manipulate, if he could hear her thoughts. She closed her eyes and focused, pushing all her precision, all her ordered will into a single chaotic thought. Jace Harlan. Find the vent. No. So, there Jace was, locked in a metal box, knowing that in 12 hours a galactic war was going to kick off, and he was completely powerless to stop it. He was frustrated, angry, but not defeated. Jace Harlan never believed in impossible. He only believed in unsolved. He slumped against the cold metal wall, letting the silence of the brig swallow him. He started thinking about his options. Punch the wall? No. Feign illness? Too cliché. His mind was chaotic, a flurry of ideas bouncing off the walls of his confinement. Then a thought, clear and sudden, wasn't his own. It cut through the noise of his mind like a high-pitched sonic beam. Jace Harlan. Find the vent. Now. It was Captain Zyra Vectis. Her telepathic warning, her final, desperate, precise instruction. Jace instantly snapped to attention. He scanned his cell again. It was a standard holding unit. A padded bench, a waste disposal chute, and a single, small ventilation grate high on the rear wall, near the ceiling. It was too small, too high, and almost certainly locked down by internal security bolts. A Kashari couldn't reach it, let alone fit through it. But Jace knew Zyra wouldn't send him on a suicide mission. There had to be an angle. He focused on the grate. Its access screws were proprietary Kashari design, nothing his human-issue cuff restraints could touch. But his restraints hummed with a low-frequency energy designed to disable him. Gosh, Jace thought. He didn't have tools, but he had energy. He slammed his cuffed hands against the wall, then against the floor, rapidly building up the kinetic energy in the restraints. The energy pulse was designed to run inward to his nervous system. Jace reversed the physics. He slammed his cuffs against the locking mechanism of the cell door, overloading the magnetic field just enough to cause a momentary surge. The surge didn't open the door. But it did exactly what Jace needed. It caused the power in his cell to flicker, briefly disrupting the electromagnetic field holding the vent grate in place. That was his window. He jumped onto the padded bench, using the wall to spring upward. He slammed his heel against the small grate. The metal screeched, and for a heart-stopping second, nothing happened. He kicked it again, harder, channeling all his frustration and urgency. The internal bolts, briefly demagnetized by the power surge, gave way with a metallic shriek. The grate clattered to the floor. The hole was tight, but it was there. Jace squeezed into the crawlspace, ignoring the scraping of metal on his skin. He moved through the ventilation shaft like a human spider, relying on the instinct Zyra both feared and depended on. He navigated the hot, cramped maze, guided only by Zyra's occasional faint psychic nudges. He reached a dead-end chute. Zyra's voice echoed in his mind, sharp as a whip. To your left. Manual override panel, level 3, inactive for maintenance. Use your cuff restraints. Jace found the panel. He used the sharp edge of his cuff to shear the small, brittle wire connecting the panel to the main security loop. It was a dirty, chaotic solution, but it worked. The panel popped open, revealing the maintenance conduit he needed. He dropped out of the vents and into a secluded service junction, just outside Zyra's quarters. The corridor was clear. He pressed the comm button on her door, a highly risky move. Captain, your security test is over. Open up. The door hissed open immediately. Zyra Vectis stood there, still in her uniform, looking utterly composed despite the chaos outside. Her eyes, however, held a new, intense light. You took 17 minutes, 32 seconds, she said without any preamble. A regrettable loss of time. I escaped a maximum security brig with no tools in under 20 minutes, Jace countered, shrugging. I'll take the win. There are no wins until Crucible Station is secured, Zyra snapped, already moving. Karath has accelerated the attack. 12 hours. We need to steal a launch-capable craft now. We can't just walk out, Jace said, gesturing to his now useless restraints. We're wanted for treason and I'm still cuffed. Zyra stopped at her weapon locker. It was locked, but she already had the key, a tiny crystalline shard she'd hidden in the seam of her collar. She opened the locker, revealing an array of lethal Kashari weaponry. She tossed Jace a compact energy cutter. Cut your restraints, she ordered. And take this. She handed him a plasma sidearm. It felt heavy and alien in his hand. Our only chance is to move fast and unpredictably, Zyra continued, strapping on 2 long, curved Kashari blades that gleamed dangerously. Karatha's security is precise. They'll be watching the main hangars and shuttle bays with predictable patterns. We need to disrupt the pattern. You have a target craft in mind? Jace asked, cutting the humming restraints from his wrists. The freedom was invigorating. The Bloodspire Eternal maintains a small fleet of single-occupant surveillance and tactical shuttles, hidden in a sub-level bay for reconnaissance, Zyra explained, her voice gaining its commander's edge. They are lightly armed but fast. It's the least guarded route. They moved, silent and lethal, through the ship's maintenance conduits. Zyra, the epitome of precision, moved with a clear objective, anticipating every sensor array and patrol route. Jace, the embodiment of chaos, simply reacted, diverting their route on instinct when he felt a patrol closing in, or covering their noise with a brief, localized static burst from his plasma weapon that shorted out a local security camera. At one point, they were forced into a storage room as a patrol unit passed. Zyra was pressed close to Jace, her rapid, shallow breathing brushing his ear. If you have any more loud thoughts, Harlan, she murmured, I will paralyze you. Just focus on the mission, Captain, Jace whispered back, a slight smile touching his lips. He was focused, but his mind couldn't help but notice the proximity. They reached the sub-level bay. It was small, dusty, and contained 3 sleek, dagger-like shuttles. The one on the far right, Zyra said, pointing. It's coded to my command credentials. We need to input the jump coordinates for Crucible Station now before we launch. Trying to do it under fire will waste precious seconds. As Zyra moved to the shuttle console, inputting the complex, encrypted jump sequence, Jace kept watch. He heard the subtle thud-thud of approaching boot falls. Company, Jace hissed, raising his plasma weapon. 3 of them. Standard patrol, level 6 armor. I am 70% complete. Zyra called out, her fingers flying across the console. The patrol unit appeared around the corner. They stopped dead, surprised to see the notorious captain and the escaped human. Hold. Surrender now, one of the Kashari officers yelled, raising his rifle. Jace didn't hesitate. He fired a single plasma blast, not at the officer, but at the power conduit running along the ceiling directly above them. The chaotic, unpredictable shot caused a massive shower of sparks, momentarily blinding the officers and triggering an automated fire suppression system. The bay was plunged into semi-darkness and mist. Jace 90%. Zyra yelled. The Kashari officers recovered quickly, firing their magnetic rifles into the smoke. Zyra, using the mist as cover, moved with blinding precision, appearing like a ghost behind the lead officer. Her blade flashed twice, cutting the power line to his weapon and slicing his sensor array, disabling him instantly without fatal injury. Jace fired 3 rapid, suppressive bursts into the corner, forcing the remaining 2 officers to take cover. Jace, get in. Launch sequence initiated. Jace scrambled into the cockpit. Zyra followed a split second later, sealing the hatch just as a magnetic slug from the Kashari officer slammed into the hull. Punch it! Jace yelled. Zyra's fingers moved over the launch controls with impossible speed. The small shuttle, designated Shadow Strike, lurched forward, shooting out of the sublevel bay and into the main launch tunnel. Karatha's voice boomed over the Shadow Strike's internal comms, laced with fury. Vectus, you will be executed for this treason. All units intercept the Shadow Strike. Do not let them reach the jump point. The main hangar was a beehive of sudden activity. 6 fighter craft were already launching, their weapon systems cycling online. The Bloodspire Eternal was massive, but its defenses were devastating. We have to get to the Severance Gate area, Zyra said, her eyes fixed on the navigational display. It's our only jump point back to the Alliance sector. They'll cut us off long before we get there, Jace said, grabbing the flight controls. I'm flying. You run defense. Zyra didn't argue. Precision is useless against those odds. You have the con. She shifted her attention to the weapons systems, her hands ready to unleash a carefully calculated counterattack. Jace took the shuttle through a series of chaotic, impossible maneuvers, flying directly into the path of an outbound freighter, skimming the surface of the flagship's reactor shielding, and diving headlong toward a cluster of maintenance drones. He flew like a drunken angel, making moves that defied physics and Kashari logic. The Kashari fighters, piloted by the rigidly trained pilots of the first squadron, couldn't keep up with Jace's random, chaotic flight path. Their precision was their weakness. They anticipated logic. Jace gave them none. Their targeting systems are locking onto my heat signature. Zyra warned. 3 incoming magnetic missiles. We'll introduce them to the engine exhaust of that freighter, Jace grinned, yanking the controls hard, throwing the Shadow Strike into a gut-wrenching spin. The missiles followed, guided by their programmed target, and slammed into the unsuspecting freighter, which exploded in a shower of debris. We need a clear vector to jump. Zyra yelled. They are surrounding the jump gate area. Then we won't use the gate, Jace said, already aiming their tiny shuttle at a dark, empty section of space far from the pre-programmed route. Input a short hop jump sequence, Captain. Low power, micro jump. Something too small for their sensors to track. Zyra hesitated for a millisecond. It was highly risky. A micro-jump outside a designated lane could leave them stranded in interstellar space. Input it, Zyra. Jace urged. Trust my instinct. She looked at him, her beautiful, fierce amber eyes meeting his. She saw the pure, unbridled certainty in his gaze. She finally relented, her precision yielding to his chaos. She input the coordinates. Jumping now. The Shadow Strike vanished in a blinding flash of light, leaving the confused Kashari squadron chasing a ghost. They reappeared a few 100,000 kilometers away, much closer to the Severance Gate sector. The jump was rough, jostling them violently. The Shadow Strike was barely holding together. 2 hours until the Kashari fleet reaches Crucible Station, Zyra said, her voice now tight with urgency. The time it took us to escape has eaten up our lead. We have to jump again. The Severance Gate is our only option to make up the time. Jace looked at the NAV console. The Severance Gate, the place that nearly killed him hours earlier, was still unstable, still emitting faint, sporadic energy flares. It was insane. Input the full jump sequence, Zyra, Jace said, his hand steady on the controls. We're going back in. Jace, Zyra began, you barely survived the collapse of the wormhole. Flying through it while it's still unstable is a death sentence. We're going in, Captain, Jace repeated. You focus on keeping the shields up. We need to get there before Karath delivers the final blow. We need to save the Alliance. Zyra nodded, a grim determination settling on her face. She input the final codes. Jump coordinates locked, she announced. Brace for impact, Harlan. Your instinct will need to be perfect this time. Jace Harlan gave a reckless grin and hit the jump drive. The jump was worse than Jace could have imagined. They didn't just breach the unstable Severance Gate, they slammed through it. The small Shadow Strike shuttle groaned in protest. Jace's vision swam, and Zyra let out a sharp, guttural sound of pain. The sheer force of the jump nearly ripped the vessel apart, throwing them into a chaotic spin upon exiting. Status? Jace yelled, fighting the controls to stabilize the shuttle. Hull integrity at 50%. Zyra reported, her voice strained but regaining its control. We lost half the forward shielding. Weapons systems are offline. Jace, look. She pointed to the main display. In the distance, glowing against the void, was the massive, bustling structure of Crucible Station. Surrounding it, in battle formation, was the Kashari fleet. And leading them all was the largest, most formidable warship Jace had ever seen, the Kashari flagship Bloodspire Eternal. They're early, Jace muttered. Karath must have pushed the jump sequence to match the summit's surprise timing. They are already engaging the station's light defenses, Zyra confirmed. We have less than an hour before their heavy artillery is brought to bear. And we can't communicate. Our systems are useless. Jace looked at the tactical display. The Shadow Strike was a tiny speck against the massive Kashari fleet. They couldn't fight. They couldn't talk. They had to cause maximum, sudden disruption. I have an idea, Zyra, Jace said, turning to her. But it's going to be the most insane thing I've ever done. Does it involve chaos? She asked, already bracing herself. Pure, unadulterated chaos, Jace confirmed. They're expecting us to fly and launch a futile attack or try to broadcast a warning. That's predictable. We're going to use the Bloodspire Eternal itself as our weapon. He pointed to the main reactor housing on the flagship. The Kashari designed for efficiency. Their secondary maintenance ports are all located in a perfectly symmetrical line near the reactor. We can punch through the shielding there. And then what, Harlan? Then, Jace grinned, the adrenaline now fully coursing through him, we introduce Commander Karath Gulvar to his own ship's security protocols. Jace piloted the critically damaged Shadow Strike on a collision course with the flagship. He flew low, using the sheer size and electromagnetic interference of the larger Kashari ships to mask their approach. He weaved through the firing lines, relying entirely on his gut instinct to dodge energy blasts and missile trails. It was a dizzying dance of death. Precision targeting locked on the secondary maintenance port, Zyra announced, her hands flying across the patched-up console, managing the failing shields with millisecond adjustments. But we have no weapons. We don't need weapons, Jace said. Just aim the Shadow Strike directly at the port. We're turning this shuttle into a kinetic battering ram. That will destroy the craft, Jace. Not if my landing is perfect, he yelled over the sound of screaming metal. At the last possible second, Jace executed a chaotic asymmetric thruster burn. The small shuttle didn't hit the Bloodspire Eternal head-on. Instead, it scraped against the reactor housing, tearing through the maintenance port's outer plating like a knife through soft cloth. The force of impact was violent, but the shuttle remained intact, buried halfway into the hull of the flagship. Get out! Jace yelled, already hitting the manual release for the cockpit. They scrambled out of the wreckage, their plasma weapons ready. They were inside the Bloodspire Eternal, the heart of the enemy fleet, and they had perhaps 5 minutes before a full security team descended on their position. They were in a dark, humid maintenance tunnel, miles from any critical system. Now what, Jace? Zyra demanded. We are trapped inside a fortress. This is where your precision comes in, Captain, Jace said. Where is Commander Karath Gulvar right now? He's commanding the attack, so he's on the main bridge. How do we get there from here? Zyra pulled up a tactical display from a nearby panel, her hands working the alien interface with flawless speed. The engineering deck is 2 levels above us, which feeds directly into the main command spine. Karatha's bridge is a straight shot up the primary conduit. But the primary conduit is protected by a multi-phase shield, controlled by the engineering deck. We need a distraction then, Jace said. Something big. Something chaotic that Karath can't ignore. Zyra's amber eyes flashed with understanding. The main fusion coil for this entire section. It's located in the central core, just above the engineering deck. If we overload it, it won't destroy the ship, but it will momentarily crash the command network and drop all interior shielding, including the bridge shield. Perfect, Jace said. You take the fusion coil. Precision strike. I'll take the engineering deck. Maximum chaos. I'll give you a 2-minute window. 2 minutes is insufficient, Zyra countered. Make it work, Captain, Jace urged. We don't have time for perfection. They split up. Zyra, the Kashari warrior of calculated movement, moved toward the fusion coil. Jace, the human of pure instinct, headed for the engineering deck. Jace burst into the engineering deck. The technicians, all focused on the battle unfolding outside, stared at the rogue human pilot standing in their midst. Hi, Jace said and then opened fire. He didn't fire at the engineers, that would have been too simple. He fired plasma bolts into the environmental controls, the gravity plating, and the atmospheric scrubbers. Within seconds, the engineering deck became a dizzying, low-gravity, smoke-filled chamber, littered with sputtering console fragments. The technicians panicked. Jace jumped onto a console, then leaped across a gap where a floor panel had just detonated. He was a whirlwind of unpredictable movement, his human chaos exploiting the Kashari's reliance on order. They couldn't hit him because he never followed a logical path. He found the terminal controlling the interior shielding. He didn't bother to hack it. He used his plasma cutter to slice the input lines, then rapidly spliced them back together in a random configuration, forcing a hard system reboot. The system screamed a warning, and the interior shields across the ship blinked offline. Jace had done his job. He created the chaos. Meanwhile, Zyra had silently reached the fusion coil control room. She saw the 3 large power conduits that fed the coil. An overload required disengaging 3 failsafes simultaneously, followed by a precisely calculated power spike. She felt the disruption from Jace's side, the shuddering deck, the flickering lights, the sudden chaotic alarms. He's a beautiful disaster, she thought grudgingly. She moved with breathtaking speed. Her claws, sharp and specialized, worked on the failsafe locks. 1, 2, 3. Disengaged. Now for the power spike. The calculation was complex, requiring a 10-point increase in energy over a 2-second interval. Any deviation meant instant containment failure, taking out the entire section. She input the command. Just as she hit execute, a security team burst into the room. Treason. Stop her. Zyra didn't look back. She hit execute and threw herself to the side as the security officers fired. The fusion coil roared, overloading exactly as she intended. The power surge hit the central network, wiping the tactical displays and most importantly, dropping the bridge shield just as Jace's manipulated system reboot caused the entire system to crash. Zyra grabbed a zip line and slid out of the room just as the security officers realized the damage was done. The entire flagship was in momentary tactical chaos. Jace met Zyra at the primary conduit entrance. The shield was gone, and the path to the bridge was open. Fusion coil overloaded, Zyra confirmed, breathing heavily. Shields are down, Jace replied. Let's go stop a war. They raced up the conduit, 2 figures of impossible unity, the chaotic human and the precise alien, both acting against the orders of their own species, guided by a shared sense of urgency and justice. They burst onto the command bridge. Commander Karath Gulvar was standing in front of the main view screen, his scarred face twisted in fury at the chaos his own ship was experiencing. What is the meaning of this internal disruption? Karath roared, turning to face them. His eyes widened when he saw Zyra and Jace. Traitors? I knew it. Karath drew his own plasma pistol. Zyra and Jace immediately returned fire. The bridge exploded into a chaotic melee. Jace, moving unpredictably, dodged behind a console, drawing Karatha's attention. Zyra, using a moment of logical distraction, aimed a clean shot at the main command terminal, destroying its communication capability. Karath, Zyra yelled, moving out of cover, the Alliance knows about the attack. Your plan has failed. Lies. Karath roared, firing wildly at Jace, who ducked and rolled out of the way. The attack has been initiated. Crucible Station will be rubble within the hour. No, it won't, a new voice cut through the chaos. A figure emerged from the shadows near the rear exit. It was Agent Mason Voss, the human intelligence operative, followed by a team of Human Alliance Marines. Kashari communication blackout initiated, Agent Voss announced coolly, his face tight with controlled rage. We intercepted the Apex breach signal. Commander Hale acted instantly. We evacuated the summit and replaced the high-value cargo with something of our own design. The Alliance is now fully mobilized. Karatha's jaw dropped in disbelief. His plan had been perfectly executed, except for the tiny, chaotic variable that was Jace Harlan. Jace, seizing the distraction, launched himself across the bridge, kicking Karatha's plasma pistol out of his hand. Karath roared and lunged at Jace with his claws. Jace dodged the first swipe. Karath was stronger, faster, a true Kashari warrior. But Jace was unpredictable. He feigned a move right, then dropped low, using the chaotic momentum to wrap his arms around Karatha's leg and yank. Karath slammed onto the deck, stunned. Zyra immediately moved in, her precision unmatched. She pinned Karath, her curved blade positioned at his throat. "It's over, Karath," she hissed. "Your conspiracy is exposed. The Alliance will hold." But Karath laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "You may have captured me, Zyra, but the final phase has already begun." He pointed a shaking claw at the main screen, where a small dark object was accelerating toward Crucible Station. "The device is armed. It will trigger a chain reaction in the station's core. War is inevitable." Jace looked at the screen. The device was moving too fast. They had seconds, maybe a minute. "Voss, we need a weapon that can neutralize a small, fast-moving object without causing a massive explosion." Agent Voss shook his head. "We don't have time to rearm any vessel. The device is on a suborbital trajectory." Jace looked at Zyra. Zyra looked at the display, her mind calculating the probability. The chaos of the moment was overwhelming the logic. Suddenly, a thought, clear as crystal, entered Jace's mind. "Harlan, we don't need a weapon. We need a vector." Zyra was thinking about a suicide mission. Jace immediately understood. He rushed back to the small wreckage of the Shadow Strike shuttle, still half embedded in the wall of the Bloodspire Eternal. "Zyra, you focus on evacuating the bridge. I'm going to finish this." He climbed back into the cockpit. He activated the emergency escape pod, which also doubled as a microcargo freighter. He was going to use the escape pod as a delivery system. "Zyra, give me the trajectory for the device." "Perfect precision," Jace commanded over the comm. Zyra, still pinning Karath, "Read the coordinates instantly. Trajectory is 187 by 4.9. Impact in 30 seconds. Jace input the coordinates. He aimed the escape pod, not at the device, but at a cluster of high-intensity communication relays on the station's exterior. "What are you doing, Jace?" Voss yelled. "I'm giving the enemy an opportunity to stop me." Jace yelled back. He launched the escape pod, accelerating out of the flagship's hull. The pod shot toward the station. Jace armed the pod's single large cargo shot, the very one designed to carry diplomatic gifts or high-value trade items. The device was closing fast on Crucible Station. Zyra's voice was calm in his ear. 20 seconds. Jace fired the cargo shot. The shot didn't hit the device. It sped past it, aimed exactly at the communication relays. It hit the relays with a flash, destroying them instantly. The small, armed device, programmed for precision targeting, registered the blast and the sudden destruction of high-value targets. It changed course. The Kashari weapon, designed for logical engagement, shifted its path, targeting the largest, most significant object in its immediate vicinity, the human cargo shot. The cargo shot, propelled away from the station by emergency thrusters, reached a safe distance. Zyra's voice, sharp and steady, 10 seconds. Now. The device detonated. A brief flash of light against the stars. The station shuddered but held. Silence fell over the command center of the Bloodspire Eternal. The war was averted. Jace's voice, tired but triumphant, "Chaos averted." The explosion was blinding but thankfully distant. When the light faded, the silence that fell over the Commander Karath Golvar's bridge was deafening. No more alarms. No more firing. Just the heavy, stunned realization that the war had been stopped, seconds before it began. The tension broke. Cheers erupted. Human and Kashari personnel who had been secretly loyal to Zyra and the Alliance embraced one another. Relief washed through the command center of the Bloodspire Eternal. Captain Zyra Vectis, still pinning Karath, slowly released her hold. Karath was beaten, his conspiracy exposed, his vision of war crushed by an impossible act of chaos and precision. Zyra turned as Agent Mason Voss and the human marines secured Karath and his loyalists. Her amber eyes found Jace Harlan, who was climbing out of the smoking escape pod wreckage. She walked over to him, her posture rigid but her movements fluid. She reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare, intimate gesture for a Kashari. "We did it," she said softly, the purring quality of her voice now carrying a note of deep satisfaction. "We did," Jace replied, utterly exhausted but grinning. 2 weeks later, the galactic dust had begun to settle. The political fallout was immense but manageable. The tribunal concluded swiftly. Commander Karath Gulvar and a dozen high-ranking officers were arrested. The conspiracy was fully exposed and the human-alien alliance, tested by fire, had held. Jace Harlan stood on the observation deck of Crucible Station, watching the familiar, swirling blue marble of his home world, Earth, rotate below. Continents and oceans, clouds and lights. A beautiful, messy planet defined by chaos. The door slid open and Zyra entered. She was wearing a new uniform, sleek and black, signifying a profound change in her status. Her rank insignia had been updated. She wasn't just a captain anymore. She was a commander, given command of her own unique vessel. "The tribunal concluded," she stated, walking up beside him. "The alliance will hold. Your commander Lucas Hale sends his gratitude and a commendation. And Voss? Well, Voss just said you're a liability but a useful one." Jace chuckled. "And what about us, Commander?" Zyra turned to face him, the vast expanse of space behind her. "You are being officially transferred to my command, Lieutenant Harlan." Jace raised an eyebrow. "I thought I was being discharged after almost starting an intergalactic incident." "You are now part of a newly sanctioned mixed-species tactical unit," Zyra explained, a flicker of something close to excitement in her eyes. "A unit tasked with rapid, unconventional response. An entire vessel designed around the concept of combining human instinct with Kashari precision. Your chaos, my order. Something new." She moved beside him, looking down at Earth. "It is beautiful," she said, her voice dropping. "Your oceans, your storms, your chaos. Full of possibility," Jace said, looking not at the planet but at her. The next moment was purely instinctual. Jace closed the distance between them. She didn't resist. She met him halfway. She kissed him, right there in the observation deck, with Earth turning below and stars burning above. It wasn't a calculated move. It was a pure, passionate convergence of two opposite forces finally accepting their shared destiny. When they broke apart, she smiled. It was a rare, beautiful expression on her feline features, unfiltered and unguarded. "Show me more," she purred, her eyes fixed on his. "Show me everything. Your chaos, your possibility, your hope." Jace Harlan realized that this was the real prize. That instinct and precision, chaos and order, human and Kashari, together, they were forging a destiny neither species could achieve alone. Something impossible. Something inevitable. He reached for her hand. "I know just the place to start, Commander." And that's the end of Jace Harlan and Zyra Vecthus's impossible story. From a chaotic jump through the Severance Gate to stopping a galactic war, they proved that sometimes, the only way to save the universe is to trust your wildest instincts and embrace the impossible. If you love this story of intergalactic action, forbidden connection, and the ultimate victory of chaos over rigidity, you know what to do. Hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another epic adventure. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay curious and keep looking up at the stars. Good wishes to all of you.